Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Do the Change podcast, where we're challenging and reimagining the field of OEHS. So in this podcast, we're going to be focusing on highlighting upcoming leaders or current leaders in their field and how they got to where they are today, with a special focus on the field of occupational health and environmental health sciences, and also delving into health equity as well. And so we're going to be talking about the hills and the valleys of their journeys and get some insight into some non-traditional paths into the field. So my name is Tyra Parrish. I'm a recent graduate from the MPH program here at Cal. And our guest speaker for this episode is Lash Nolen. So born and raised in Southern California, LaShyra, did I say that right? LaShyra, yeah. Okay. LaShyra Lash Nolen is a writer, advocate, activist, and an advocate. So that was a good Freudian slip. Dual degree MD, MPP student at Harvard Medical School and Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Where she is serving as a student council president of her medical school class, the first documented Black woman to hold this leadership position. Oh my gosh, that word always trips me up with my stutter. Fervent. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Advocate for marginalized populations. Her voice has been featured in the New England Journal of Medicine, Health Affairs, and NPR, among others. She is also a co-host of the Clinical Problem Solvers Anti-Racism in Medicine podcast and served as a member of the White House Health Equity Roundtable. In 2021, she founded the We Got Us, a youth-led grassroots community empowerment project with the mission to increase access to education and healing for marginalized communities. An emerging leader in public policy, she is a 2023 New Leaders Council Fellow and a Harvard Kennedy School Center for Public Leadership Fellow. Lash attended Loyola Marymount University, where she served as the student body president and graduated cum laude with a BS in health and human sciences. Following her graduation, she was selected as a Fulbright scholar and served as an AmeriCorps member, where she led public health initiatives to improve care for vulnerable populations. Her work has earned her the honor of being a Forbes 30 under 30, which is some leader in healthcare. The 2020 National Minority Quality Forum's youngest 40 under 40 leader in minority health, a Boston Celtics hero among us, and a Rock Health top 50 leader in digital health. Lash plans to continue to use policy writing and medical education reform as tools to impact the health of her future patients and community as a physician activist and public leader. She is applying into internal medicine residency this fall. So Lash has done a lot and is planning to do even more. And so thank you so much for being on this podcast and just speaking to us about you and your experience and what you have going on. So yeah, welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I know my bio is like a mouthful because it's like all of random things dropped in there. So thank you for that. And I'm excited that you invited me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So first, we're going to start with our check-in question, just to get it going. So the check-in question is, what is the first thing you notice when meeting new people?
I would say just their energy. Do they come off as warm, friendly? Are they receptive to like my random jokes that I might throw out about the weather or like whatever we're at? Just getting a feel for like how somebody is, and depending on how long I'm in the space, I might see how they interact with other people. If they're like kind to other people, I think like that kindness piece is really big to me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's very similar, like energy, but also like how when they're talking with people, are they like, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, you can tell when someone's actively listening and kind of asking questions, following what they've heard or what another person has shared.
Yeah, and I think they're engaged.
How they're engaging with people versus like, oh, I'm just talking to you so I can talk about myself. Like sometimes you come across those people, but I feel like the people that's like the first thing I know is like, how do you have conversations with people? So yeah, it's very similar, like wavelength for sure. So that's really dope. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into it. So can you share your personal journey and how you became interested in your field? And what sparked your passion or motivated you to pursue a career in this area? And was the dream always medicine?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because there was nobody in my family who was in medicine when I was growing up. No one in the allied health professional fields or anything in healthcare. So for me, like when I first even thought about becoming a physician, it was third grade, Amber Elementary School in LA. We had a science fair, and I told my mom like the day before, like, hey, it's a science fair tomorrow. And she was like, girl, what? So we basically had to like whip up this project together quickly. I remember we went to Walmart and she found something on Google, if Google existed then, some search engine.
Yeah.
And it was looking at how fish responded to light. And that was like my science project. And I ended up getting first place at that science project. I still have the medal in my room because it's like
Oh,
it was the first time that I had been rewarded for something related to science. And that moment really just sparked this interest in science for me. And I just kept on pursuing that. And I was like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. I actually really like this investigative approach to learning and all of that. And I don't know where it came from, but then at that point, I decided I was going to be a brain surgeon. Like that was like,
okay.
I would tell people, yeah. And I was like,
Yeah.
dressing up as a doctor for Halloween ever since that point. So it really was like support science fairs, y'all, because they really do spark interest for the youth.
That's like the seed planting for sure.
Exactly, exactly. Um, so that was kind of where it started for me. And I think that I always got positive feedback from adults whenever I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna be a brain surgeon. They're like, oh, okay, you something, you know. So it was also that too. And I really have to shout my family out for that, especially my mom, who raised me as a single parent. It was the first in our family to get both her bachelor's and her master's degree. And even though she wasn't in the healthcare field, she kind of showed me how important education was. And beyond that, always just believed in me. Even though like I had never seen a Black doctor before, it was how much my mom believed in me and she saw me and she was like, we're gonna claim this dream together. That just meant so much to me. Like my mom would always keep tabs on, like I remember she would always tell me about this Black brain surgeon, Dr. Keith Black. I don't know if he's still practicing, but whenever she heard of like Black doctors or anything, she would just send me like news clippings and videos. And it was just so incredible to have that kind of support. And the same energy came from my grandmother too, who didn't have the opportunity to pursue education beyond high school, but like always showed me the importance of giving back to our community through church, you know, cooking praline candy for the kids after church and all that. But also, my grandmother similarly just believed in me so much. Like she would always tell me, I played basketball growing up, protect your hands, be careful, you know, you're going to be a surgeon. And it just kind of like claimed that dream in my mind for me already. Like, yeah, I got to protect my hands because I'm going to be a surgeon type of thing.
Right.
And I think that that's really where the seed started. It was like this young Black girl in Compton who had never seen a Black doctor before.
Yeah.
But with the support of my family, I was really able to see that dream for myself, despite the fact that I didn't see that Black doctor until I got to undergrad, basically. And I just really couldn't have done it without the support of my family. So this is really a win for us.
Yeah. And I really like how like your family kind of supported you from both ends of even though like you had shared that you didn't see a Black doctor, they're like, that doesn't matter because you're gonna be the Black doctor.
Right.
And on top of that, then they start sending you like stuff of like, okay, but you're actually like, we're there. We're not there in a lot of numbers, but we're there. So you're kind of getting it from both ends of like, even if you don't see yourself, you can be that person that's in those
Right.
spaces. And then in addition, there are sprinkles of us in those spaces. So there's also like community there. And I
Yeah.
think that's just, I'm getting emotional, but that's like really heartwarming of like, that's sometimes all like someone needs, where it's like, you just need someone to be like, even if you're not there, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there.
Yep.
And then even like Black people have a very funny way of like supporting her, like, oh girl, like watch out, you don't want to hurt you.
Right.
And that's like such like a very cute and like creative way to further manifest that into your life of like, okay, you know what? I do got it into everything. Like,
right. Like, okay, you bad.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. I love that. And I guess to further expand upon that, as you were kind of going through that journey and then through undergrad, and even now, like, were there any kind of mentors in addition to your family who were kind of keeping you going or even like directing you to different like field, not necessarily fields, but I know there's a lot of specialties in medicine. Yeah. So like, were there folks who are kind of helping you kind of navigate that?
Absolutely. So I go through high school, and while I'm in high school, had a very important family member to me die from a preventative health illness. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was also starting to, because like once you become the doctor in your family, I'm putting like air quotes up for our listeners, they just think you a doctor. So like everybody in my family would come to me and be like, yeah, my family calls me Shyra. Yeah, Shyra, I don't know what's going on. I got the sugar, or like my blood pressure is high. So they're telling me all of their health issues, right? Yeah. And I started to realize like, man, a lot of my family members have these preventative illnesses like high blood pressure or diabetes. And I was seeing my family be impacted by it to the point that it was impacting like their lifespans. And I think that really kind of colored my lens differently as I was approaching like, you know, what do I want to do in medicine? So I went to LMU and I was a health and human sciences major. And up until this point, I had never seen like physically like a Black doctor in front of me. And I had an incredible advisor at LMU through Health and Human Sciences, and her name is Dr. Heather Tarleton. She is like just this badass Black woman, unforgivable, and just brilliant. Like I think that's the word that I would use to describe her. And when I stepped into her office, it just felt like somebody was kind of passing the baton. It felt like my mom and my family was passing the baton to her to kind of like hold me and keep me as I went through LMU. I remember I walked in there and I had my highlighters and everything all lined up. Like I was serious. And she was like, okay, like you really about to do this thing. And it was just so great to feel seen and to also see myself in her, because even though she wasn't a medical doctor, she had a PhD. And it was like so nice to just see someone who was going to have my back and also like be a role model in this path for me. So Dr. Charlton studies like public health, and that's what her expertise is. And I think that she was the most pivotal mentor that I had at LMU because her courses helped me start to think about the physician that I wanted to become, and then also my patients and how I wanted to care for them. And I started to think about, well, as a physician, you see patients in the clinic, but so much of their health is impacted by what happens before they can even get to your clinic.
Exactly.
Whether it's their ability to transport themselves to your clinic, to get childcare so that they can even go to that visit. Do they have safe spaces to exercise? I mean, and this is right up your alley because you have your MPH, so you know all about this.
Oh, yes.
Sociopolitical determinants of health. And that was the first time that I heard that term. And it just blew my mind. And it was like Dr. Charlton who like, you know, taught me all of this foundation. Yeah. And I started to reflect more about my own life because I spent the larger half of my childhood in Compton, in LA. And when I was 10 years old, we moved to Rancho Cucamonga in the IE, or the Inland Empire, which is a very white suburban community. And that was the first time that I started to be like, hold up, like y'all got Trader Joe's out here, ain't no potholes in the street. Like y'all got three
potholes is so real.
Like, I was like, wait a minute, this is different. This is very different. Yeah. No burglar bars on the windows. Like so I think that like that second year at LMU is when I was like, wow, like here's this combination of like my life and a reflection upon all of those experiences and who I imagine myself becoming. And I think that that's where like me becoming a physician was less about, oh, I'm saying I want to become a physician because of the fact that people respond to me positively when I say it, or it's like a good dream to pursue. It's going to help me financially provide for my family, because when I look up neurosurgeon, they make a lot of money. It was like, well, I think that I want to actually dive deeper into what being an MD, MPH, or an MD, MPP might look like. I want to dive deeper into, do I want to become a family medicine doctor or a primary care doctor? Because that might be more suited and aligned for my vision for healing. And I feel like that's really what that process at LMU was for me. And I think that that was such a crucial point in my development and trying to figure out the doctor that I would become, that I would be in the next year, essentially.
Yeah. And I really love that, because I think that like deep calling is what's going to push you through those really hard times. Like, I think like having a grasp on like your core of who you are as a person, how it's connected to like your work or your life work, because it never truly ends. Like, healing never ends. And I think that, and I think that sometimes when folks get into medicine, which is fair because it does pay your bills, it really does. But it's also like medicine also could be very unforgiving in regards to the stress, in regards to the emotional load, in regards to folks are coming in sometimes at 100, and you have to help kind of them like work through that in addition to whatever you're also bringing into that space. And so having that really deep calling of like, I'm here, like how you were saying, like, I'm here because I want to facilitate healing in some ways, and however broad you want to take healing. And that is what pushes you through those really challenging times. And so that's really, I can't imagine I can't imagine learning about public health at that point, if that makes sense. Cause that's just, I learned about public health like later on. And in my head, like, I'm like, what? Like, this is all like what you said, like, this is like my entire life, essentially. Like, that's what public health is. But I can only imagine like how much of an impact that would have if like that was kind of like, I don't want to say like a basic understanding of life, but I feel like if we had learned at the beginning of like these things that are happening are not inherently tied to being a Black person or inherently tied to being a person of color, that is rather like a whole bunch of things that are outside of your control externally impacting how you can live your life. That's just a totally different way of looking at yourself, your community, and then other communities and connecting with those communities, if that makes sense. So that's really
No, I really appreciate that point that you're bringing up, because like even one issue that I have with medicine today, and I think that they're starting to do it better, is saying like, oh, well, being Black is a risk factor for developing diabetes. No. Racism and the sociopolitical constructs that promote oppression make it so that you're more likely to develop diabetes. And I think that that is really that framework that we unfortunately don't get, because we study in Mendel's P's in biology class instead of learning about the context that really undergirds all of those lessons.
Exactly that. I even think on the CDC, it still says that for cardiovascular disease, a risk factor is being Black, and it's still up there. And I'm like, y'all know better. And it's just, mind blowing.
Yeah, it's wild. It's really wild.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the next question, which is, what was the journey like becoming the first documented Black woman to be the president of your medical school class at Harvard? So kind of jumping from now, you're talking about LMU into the like, or actually maybe if you don't mind, before that, talking about the application process and like how that was for you, like applying to medical school, and then jumping into that, because I feel like that's like a very important chunk that I'm just over.
Applying.
Applying.
Oh my God, Wow. Okay. So basically, LMU was great. Met friends, lifelong friends, lifelong mentors. Learned how to navigate a PWI. Great skill.
It's a whole other episode. Love LMU, but also
exactly. And I also was student body president at LMU too. And I think that what I was so thankful for, and I'll say this because I think it's important to like contextualize my journey, because I think people see the accomplishments that I have and they're like, oh yeah, she just wins. But like, no, I just fell forward. Like that's really what my life has been.
Falling forward, because you're going somewhere.
Exactly. Right. You know, like you got to take every hit and just use it as an opportunity to get up and get better. And I think that the way that that's presented itself in my life is when I applied to undergrad, or, you know, when I was applying to colleges, I applied to like maybe 20 different schools and only got accepted to really like the Cal States, maybe one of the UCs, and LMU just happened to send me like a pamphlet or something like that. Thank God I was on their mailing list, because I was applying to like all of these like Ivy League school. I was applying to like Harvard. I was applying to Duke and Yale. Yeah. And they said, no.
No, sweetie.
They said, no, sweetie, not. Yeah. But really, that was just God saying, not now.
Right. That period. Because I think people think where it's like that door might open next year, 2 weeks. Like, it's just like it, like you said, it's a not now, or it's a very gentle, like deferment of that's not your path. Your path is bigger and better than what you have like in your mind, if that makes sense. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And yeah, I just want to bring this up for our listeners who, like, no matter where you are, but especially for our listeners who might be a pre-health professional student in undergrad, because like I got denied from all these schools and I ended up at LMU, but I think that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because at LMU, I had so much support that I was able to like leave there and go into the world like, you can't tell me nothing. You know what I mean? Like I had the leadership experience. I had gained like the academic confidence. I knew how to walk into office hours and be like, look, this is what I need. I learned, don't you leave a class with a doubt in your mind about anything without asking that professor to clarify it for you, because you paid to be there. Like just so many helpful life lessons that have made medical school so much easier. So I just want to like drop that nugget in there for me. And you know, I also didn't have the easiest time my first year at LMU academically. Like it was the first time that I was taking both chemistry and biology at the same time. I looked at that schedule. I said, ooh, so we don't take it in 2 different semesters. We take it
8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I remember.
Yes. And I said, oh, and they have lab too. And the lab is 1 unit, but we working for 8 hours. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I'm not mad about it, but I am.
Yeah.
So it was just like, and a lot of my classmates, they were coming from like schools where they had like done like AP chemistry, or like, you know, it's kind of like it was a breeze for them. It was like a review so for them. And for me, like they offered like AP chemistry at my high school and stuff, but I just never had the confidence to like take that class. So it was a transition. But I did really well, you know, from that point forward, because I got my footing. So just wanted to share that nugget so that you know that even if you struggle early on, it's not always about how you start, but it's about how you finish. Exactly. I think that that's something that I learned. So now that we got that, so you know that, you know, it wasn't all just like, you know, rainbows and unicorns, we could fast forward to my senior year at LMU. And basically, I took the MCAT right after graduation. That was rough because everybody was celebrating traveling. I was like, you know, deep in the amino acids. It was tragic. But the reason why I wanted to take it then is because I had gotten a Fulbright grant to go to Spain.
Yes.
So I went there. I taught English in Galicia, which is the most northwestern province, right above Portugal and Spain. I was the only Black woman like in the area.
Yeah.
And that experience was interesting, but so empowering, because I really learned to own my Blackness and to learn how to communicate the Black experience in America for me to people that have never interacted or interfaced with like American culture directly.
Yes.
So it was really inspiring and powerful in that way. And then my second year, I did AmeriCorps. And I was, and I think that's like really what colored like my experience in medical school even more, because I was doing AmeriCorps. I was working as a health educator at a federally qualified health center, which is like a community health center that gets federal dollars. Yeah. I was living on the south side of Chicago, but I was working at the clinic on the north side of Chicago. And every day I would have about 2 hours of a commute, including from and back. Mm-hmm. So I would just read. I read like The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. Mm-hmm. I read The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. I was introduced to Eve Ewing. Like, it was like my mind was expanding as I'm taking these trains rides. Yeah. But then on top of that, I'm noticing that as I come from the north side to the south side, that all the white folks get off at the Roosevelt stop and all the Black folks stay on the train as we journey into the south side. And then things start to look a lot more like Compton. So it kind of felt like I was going from Rancho to Compton every day. And that was like a reflection of my own life experiences. Yeah. And on top of that, I was a health educator. So these patients will come in, they get a new diagnosis of hypertension, diabetes. I'm supposed to tell them how they can make these small, SMART goals to improve their health. But I'm like, I'm telling you to eat less tortillas, but you can barely put food on the table to afford, healthy vegetables for your family, or could barely to get here. So I think that all of those experiences, the personal growth that I had in Spain, and then also the experiences that I had in Chicago, like allow me to go into my interview process as I was interviewing for med school with like this, as we talked about, like purpose. Like I knew what I was there to do. I was like, we are here to dismantle systemic racism as it impacts health. And that was it. And I was like, and we about to do this for like unforgivably for Black people. Like, yes, and I think that was kind of the mindset that I came into this with. And I think that it just was so liberating to know that the schools that accepted me, many of the schools that accept, so it was like the opposite. I applied to 15 med schools and got into everyone that I interviewed at, which is wild. So it was like 14 schools. Yes. And that was wild. It's like the setback for the comeback all over again. The same schools that rejected me were giving me full scholarships to go to medical school. Yes. It was such a blessing. But what felt the most rewarding and special to me is that I did it unforgivably myself. Like people knew from my application, the way I presented myself in my interviews, that this is what I'm coming to do. And I think that having that sense of purpose really has just made the journey up to this point so impactful and special to me.
Yeah. And I really want to highlight how when you were talking about your travel, or this you being on that train and taking the opportunity to not only read, but to also be aware of like what's happening. And I feel like that is like very small, but it's very important, of like just being aware and cognizant of like what you're experiencing or seeing, and then also kind of reflecting on that. So I think sometimes like we're in situations or spaces where it could be very easy to kind of get swept into like, this is what I'm here to do, and this is like all that I need to do, and this is my business, and this is why I get paid for, and that's it. And I think that like, while yes, I'm all for the like there's a balance between like, don't let yourself be taken advantage of to where you're being overworked for what you're being paid. But then also there is this, I don't want to say like a responsibility, but I think there is a little bit of responsibility of being just aware of what you're seeing, and how, if you're like how you said your goal was in regards to healing and also dismantling like systemic racism and oppression in the medical field, being aware of like what you are seeing in regards to, like you said, like white people getting off on Roosevelt, you said? I'm not from Chicago. Roosevelt.
Yes, Roosevelt.
Getting off on Roosevelt, and you're like, hold on, like what's going on? And then you're seeing, and you're also experiencing like, you're having to tell your patients like different things in regards to like how they can change their diet. But then you're also like, it's just, I think that being a physician requires that. Like you need to also obviously give medical advice to your patients, but also be aware of the fact that is it fair to tell someone, hey, yeah, you should be buying this, knowing good and well that like that's like, that's just not like a fair statement to say also. And it's like balancing that, but that requires a level of social awareness and wanting to be aware. And I think that in those in that like experience that you were sharing, like you were being aware of that. And I think that that's and then also demonstrating that when you're doing your interviews as well, is like, this is me, this is what I've noticed, this is what needs to be like, this is what needs to change. And like, that's it. And like, right. And then also I feel like that's just huge, because I think sometimes folks, because I'm also, God willing, getting into applying to medical school also, but I think that there is this fear or like narrative, like you have to present yourself a certain way when you're applying to medical school. And it's like, you could be yourself and still get accepted into medical school, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And I really appreciate that you stood 10 toes down in that. And that's really dope.
Exactly. And that's so exciting that you're applying to medical school. Yeah, I think that I really appreciate how you drew out this point about like being aware and like having the opportunity to be perceptive. And I think that opportunity was really offered because I took those 2 gap years.
Right.
Because before then, it's like when you're pre-med and you're just going through the I have so much respect for people that go straight through. But I also worry about them, because I'm like, there's so much life that we don't get to see or experience, or even like so much of ourselves that's left unexplored.
Right.
When we're on the pre-med track, because it's like organic chemistry, general chemistry, chemistry, calculus. Like, it is just a nonstop grind. Volunteering over the summer, you got to be doing something. You in somebody's lab, you pipetting. On top of that, you're trying to like maintain your sanity, spend time with your family, your friends. So there's no time to like really reflect and be like, dang, like, who am I becoming? Who am I? Who do I want to be? Like, what is happening? Like, am I in tune with myself? And I think that having those gap years, I journaled and I read a lot, and I got to read what I wanted to read. And I think that that is what elevated my consciousness and my purpose, because before that time, like, I was just following the path that I thought I had to follow without having a true sense of direction. And I think that even if you go straight through or you take gap years, like really using that time to pour into yourself. And I think that really benefited me. Yeah.
And I guess I want to now loop back to the first question, which was, okay, so now you got into Harvard Medical School. How was that journey to being the first like documented Black woman or Black woman who was the president of her medical school class? How did that happen?
Yeah, so basically, I didn't apply to Harvard Medical School at first.
Okay.
It was one of my mentors, 2 of my mentors, who were like, Lash, you need to apply to Harvard. I was like, well, I ain't going to that bougie school. Like, they're going to just take my money and not give me an interview or whatever. So I apply, I get an interview. I'm at my interview. Like, I have like damn near a panic attack in the bathroom before the interview, because I'm like, yo, I'm at Harvard. Like, I'm tripping, right? Like, you step onto campus at Harvard Medical School and like, it just takes your breath away, because like the building is like all marble. It's just like so extravagant. Like, things are gold trimmed. There's like white men, like all on these portraits everywhere. And you're just like, what is going on? Like, Paul Farmer studied here. Like, it's just so extravagant. And I think that I just needed some time to just catch my breath. Like, literally anything they gave me that interview day, I kept it. Like, they gave us like a little like folder that had the Harvard like logo on there. I said, yeah, we gonna go ahead and just keep this and put some documents on.
Right, you look, getting your reparations. I'm gonna take that.
Let me see. Yeah, the ancestors right there. Right. So yeah, but long story short, I got in. I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my God. Like it, I told all of my family and my friends and Dr. Charlton, my mentor. And they were just like, this is an incredible opportunity. And I just knew that, like, even in my decision, it was tough, because I was like, do I stay home in Cali? Because there's some incredible medical schools here. I'd be closer to family and all of that. Or do I go to Harvard Medical School and I bring my family, my values, I bring LA, I bring everything that is meaningful to me into this space, because I don't know when they will have someone who can bring what I can bring to this space again. So as soon as I got to Harvard, like I just got busy. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna run for student council president, and I'm not going to run on a platform of like fun and festivities. Like I'm gonna run on a platform that's saying like, hey, like we're gonna do the difficult work. We're gonna hold the institution accountable. We're gonna do great work for social justice. And I was just so excited to see that my classmates agree with that. Because I did have a little bit of an identity crisis when I first got there. I was like, well, the other people who might be interested in running, like they're like throwing all these parties and stuff like that. And that's just never really been me. So like, again, to your point, like always returning back to self and like remembering like, why am I doing this? Like what makes this me, and just in going with that. And I think that that's kind of what that experience was. When I first won, I didn't realize that I was gonna be the first. Like in this role of student council president. And I was elected like in it was 2019. It was like maybe September of 2019. And like no one really like cared about it. It really wasn't in like the news or nothing like that. But then one of my incredible classmates, Victor Lopez Carmen, he's like one of my really good friends. He decided to do a Q&A with me for Teen Vogue, and talking about how I had been elected into this role. And he was like, yeah, I think it's important for people to know about this. And it blew up. And suddenly like the Lily from Washington Post, it was Afrotech. I was about to do an interview with CNN, but then like the pandemic hit and things got ridiculous and scary. And yeah, it was really cool. Like, you know, Vice President Kamala Harris, like, you know, had tweeted that I was president. It was just wild. But I think that there were two things going through my mind. The first was, why did it take y'all so long? And the second was like, this is cool. Like I'm doing cool work within Harvard, but like, what about the Black women that never make it to Harvard? What about the Black women that are outside the walls of Harvard, like down the street in Roxbury, where the life expectancy is 23 years less than like where there's white folks right down the street in Back Bay? Like, I think that's like in that role, I was just like, yeah, this is really cool, but I think that there's something bigger here. And I think it's easy to be in institutions and be serving these institutions the whole time you're there, and you leave and you're like, well, what have I really been able to do for like my people or my community? And I think that was heavy on my heart and my mind, even as I was in that role.
Hi guys, this is Tyra Parrish, your host for this episode, and we have reached the end of part 1 of this conversation with this amazing speaker. Don't click out yet because part 2 to this conversation has already been posted. So go ahead and click over to the next page, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and Spotify page.